Let me tell you the biggest surprise I found in this story. Kraft macaroni and cheese has been around since 1921. Did you know that? Well, let's see what this story holds on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. After finding endless articles in the paper and many online stories written up about this company, I decided to use these reports of the tax courts, written in 1954, to outline our story today. It thoroughly details the history of the company, so much so that it took a few hours just to sort through it. I'll try my best to give you the Cliff Notes version, but there is a lot, and I already had found a bunch of other stuff before finding this, so let's just see how this goes. I also found some really fun commercials too, so stay tuned for those. James Lewis Kraft was born in 1874 in Canada. Now don't let that sourpuss face throw you off. He's actually a really nice guy. He had 6 brothers and 1 sister. He married Pauline in 1909, and they only had 1 daughter. Here's a passport photo of him and Pauline in 1924. Look at them. You can just tell these two are party animals. So, backing up just a little bit, whenever he was becoming of age to work, his family had moved from Canada to Buffalo, New York. In 1903, Kraft was a secretary and treasurer of Shefford Cheese Company. He went out to Chicago on a business trip in 1904, and the online stories say that his business partners severed their relationship with him while he was out there, leaving him stranded out there. However, the official report says that he withdrew from that partnership and started his own operations in Chicago. He said this new company was a little business with 1 horse named Patty and a wagon. The online accounts said that he had $65 in his pocket. He brought one of his brothers out there to help him. Now, the bulk of this business dealt with bulk cheeses, mainly to retailers, not so much to individuals. It says that the wheels of cheese were usually kept on the countertops at the grocery store. If the weather was warm, the cheese could melt or get oily. If the weather was too cold, the cheese could dry out. It says that the grocer would have to cut off the dry piece to cut a fresh piece for the customer, which over time resulted in a loss of profit. Some grocers were able to keep the cheese in refrigerators, but they said that it actually molded faster than if they kept it out on the counter. I also learned that cheeses vary based on what time of year it was produced. Apparently, cheeses made between June and October were called grass cheese, and it was a better quality cheese, and it was more sought after. Cheeses made during the wintertime was called fodder cheese, and for whatever reason it wasn't thought of as good of quality. So sometimes cheese factories would actually close down between autumn and spring because of this. So 5 years later, in 1909, another brother joined, and the company was incorporated under J.L. Kraft and Brothers Company. Now eventually, 4 out of his 6 brothers would help run the business. So by now they started selling packaged cream cheeses, along with a few other appetizer type cheeses. I thought it was interesting to note that 100 years ago, cream cheese was in 3-ounce tinfoil wrapped packages, much like it is today. This report goes into detail on how most of the cheeses in the company are made, including the cream cheese. It says prior to 1900, cream cheese was made by Empire Cheese Company out of New York, and their brand name was Philadelphia Cream Cheese. In 1900, their factory burned down, and that's when Phoenix Cheese Company was formed, and they carried on business from that same location. I thought this was interesting. In the beginning, cream cheese used to be packaged by hand, bare hands. You know the texture of cream cheese. It's very sticky, it's hard to work with. It says girls were employed to package the cream cheese, but since gloves were very hard to use, they would use their bare hands. They would wrap the cheese, and many times smearing the cheese on the outside of the wrappers, many times getting fingerprints, finger dents left in the blocks of cheese. It says that mold would develop in a very short time. Eventually, their competitor Phoenix had come up with a machine that would extrude the cream cheese in a ribbon that ran along a conveyor belt, and a wire was used to cut it into blocks. Then the girls would pick up the blocks and wrap them, but they were still using their bare hands though. These cheeses were very perishable, especially during the summer, so they couldn't deliver very far away from the factory, and they had to start using refrigerated cars now. In 1916, Kraft patented a method to pasteurize and sterilize his cheeses to inhibit the growth of bacteria. The patent claimed that it destroyed all bacteria. During World War I, Kraft processed large quantities of cheese in 8-pound tins. Apparently the use of tins was expensive, but the smaller tin packages proved to reduce the spoilage much better than the bulk cheeses. It was worth the extra cost. The cheeses could now be shipped much further distances. In 1917, the other cheese company called Phoenix Cheese was applying for a patent for a sterilization on cheese, apparently a little different than Kraft's method. It says, controversy arose between Kraft and Phoenix. Kraft and Phoenix decided it would be good business policy to provide for cross-licensing, and they partnered, forming Kraft Phoenix. They remained separate entities though. It mentions that Kraft was having trouble keeping up with demand anyways, so a partner made sense. Throughout the 19-teens, there's several ads in the paper for different types of cheeses in tins. It was sold under the brand name Elkhorn. Now this creepy little dude was called Johnny Appetite. He pops up on all kinds of ads. Here's a small list of some of their products in 1917. In 1919, there's an article talking about plans for Kraft buying a site in Chicago to build a 70,000 square foot factory on. In 1920, here's a couple ads. One of them says, take a tin of cheese with you on a fishing trip and it won't go bad. And the other one says, tired women should eat cheese because it will rebuild the wasted tissues, giving it new fire and energy to the body quicker than any other food. In 1921, the Kraft Company acquired its first company. Jacob Marty Company was a cheese assembling company, and they manufactured Swiss cheese. Also, by 1921, it says packing the cheese in tins was actually greatly reduced now, and Johnny Appetite fades off about this time as well. A new way to package was a 5-pound cheese loaf in a tinfoil-lined wooden box, and it was slightly heated to seal it, and now these bigger packages were able to make it further distances. Also, in 1921, the first advertisements appear for Kraft macaroni and cheese, in a tin. It says, when you take that steaming dish to the table, you'll agree that the Kraft cooks have made a more delectable dish than the average housewife. Then in 1924, the company was reorganized under the name Kraft Cheese Company. In 1925, there were a lot of copycats popping up by now. Realizing that the process was simple enough to replicate easily, Kraft and Phoenix decided to license out some of the processing patents to responsible manufacturers. Again, Kraft realized that they couldn't keep up with the demand and couldn't access all the materials needed all the time. Not to mention, a lot of cheese manufacturers were displaying hostility towards some of their new products coming out. Competitors were actually taking to newspapers or however, and they were trying to dissuade the customers from using these processed cheeses, trying to convince them that they were very unhealthy. In 1926, a guy named Edward William Kuhn had patented a process for curing cheddar cheese, and his methods cured the cheese in a substantially shorter time than what Kraft was using. So Kraft acquired the assets to that patent, and the cheese using that method was called Kuhn cheese. Kuhn cheese seems to be more popular in Australia currently. Unfortunately, cancel culture got a hold of Kuhn cheese and canceled it in 2020. Its new name is Cheer cheese. I mean, come on, it's just the guy's name. It's no different than Kraft or Oscar Mayer. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Moving on. In 1927, Kraft acquired the Velveeta Cheese Company. Now that was interesting to me. I thought Kraft invented Velveeta, but they didn't. It was an ongoing idea for a competitor company, but they couldn't get it off the ground. In fact, Kraft had been working on a product to compete with it, but couldn't get it off the ground either. This cheese had a specific method of heating the cheddar condensed whey, and other secret ingredients. Anyways, they ended up buying the Velveeta company cash for almost $25,000. The Velveeta company had operated at a loss for the last 3 years before they were bought. That same year, Kraft was still trying to get new Kraft, which was their competitor product, off their ground. In 1928, Kraft would take the new Kraft idea and merge it with the Velveeta idea and released the new product called Velveeta, which actually took off right from the beginning. I see here it says that you can get Velveeta in a spread or slice. And I did notice that in one of these 50s or 60s commercials that I watched, that they were slicing Velveeta like more of a block. But then again, you see this 1929 ad and it says it spreads like butter. Interesting. So in 1929, Kraft K spread was a cream cheese relish, and it was very popular. It did not need to be refrigerated. In 1928, Kraft and Phoenix actually merged, and now they're called Kraft Phoenix Company. By the way, this is a photo of John Henry Kraft, one of the brothers, and he's at this time vice president. Kraft Mayonnaise and Miracle Whip came out in the late 20s. And here's Ham-and-A's, which is mayo, pickles, pimentos, and ham in a interesting spread. Here's 3 1930 ads. I just posted these so you can see the packaging on them. Like, look how the Velveeta changed from April to September that same year. The September one resembles a little bit more what it looks like today. Notice the French dressing is in an interesting bottle. Now, the boxed macaroni and cheese didn't come out until 1936. And here's an ad in the paper in Orlando, Florida, where there's a demonstration all day to show their new product. And did you know that there was a spaghetti box dinner as well? I did not know that. By 1930, Kraft Phoenix had businesses in England, Germany, Belgium, Holland, Cuba, Australia, Argentina, and Canada. In 1930, the National Dairy Company acquired all the assets and businesses to Kraft Phoenix Company for over $78 million. The Kraft brothers still ran the company. And here's a quick look at the factory in the paper in 1932. Here's an article in 1943 stating that John was taking over as president of Kraft. James was stepping down since he was an executive at the National Dairy Company and also president of the National Cheese Institute. And by 1940, the company name was changed to Kraft Cheese Company. In 1945, it was changed again to Kraft Food Company. The headquarters is still in Chicago, and Kraft merged with Heinz in 2015. So back in 1933, Kraft had a weekly 1-hour radio show called Kraft Music Hall, which Bing Crosby hosted from 1936 till 1946. It was a variety show. In 1958, it transitioned onto television and it was called Kraft Television Theater. It ran until 1967. James died in 1953 at the age of 78. He was very religious. He said that God was a partner in his business. He was a deacon at his church, and he was also known to be very generous. He said, we should not only be giving our tithes, we should be giving our time, our service, and our money without giving heed to the amount that we give, whether it be 10% or 95%. And I thought this was interesting. In 1945, Kraft was down in Florida, which apparently him and his wife went every year, and this particular time he happened to catch a 50-pound tarpon. Apparently he wrangled him for about 70 minutes, and he happened to write a poem about it, and it's published in the paper. It's kinda cute. One more interesting thing about Kraft was that he was an expert on jade. He knew how to cut it, and he often gave jade pins out as gifts for employees. This article said that he was offered a job as a jade cutter and polisher at the age of 72, but he turned it down. So, in all of my research, I never found a bottle that looks like mine. The body kind of looks like it's blown. It kind of has that wonky look to it, but then the top looks crisp like it's machine made, and it's a screw top. So I'm going to estimate that this one's maybe in the 1920s. And I know that we're starting to experiment with a lot of new foods, like chop suey, chili sauce, Thousand Island, and this looks like it's a dressing bottle. But I've never seen this script on any ads that I've come across. And part of me was even wondering if this maybe doesn't even belong to Kraft. I started wondering if maybe that R is maybe an N. I went looking around, but I didn't really find any Naft companies anywhere, so... Anyways, let's just watch a couple commercials, and then let's just be done with this one. Alright? You guys have a good day. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Homemade macaroni and cheese makes a hit, and it's simple with Kraft macaroni and cheese dinner. Only a nickel a serving, too. You get tender macaroni and new, improved Kraft grated that makes Kraft dinner golden with rich cheddar flavor. For this tasty main dish, we've spooned into it onto frankfurters that we've split and broiled and then spread with mustard. The garnish is pimento. Enjoy it often. Kraft macaroni and cheese dinner.
Hey, kids, spaghetti for lunch.
Spaghetti, wait! Spaghetti, spaghetti!
You don't have to call them twice for this. This is new Kraft spaghetti. New mild American style. And it has a flavor kids love. Sort of tomatoey sweet. Jim and I like it, too. Of course, the big thing is you cook it yourself. It's not like spaghetti that has to stand around in a sauce. This tastes fresh and homemade because it is. All you add is tomato paste, and you get almost twice the sauce other spaghetti dinners give you. And there's good Kraft cheese right in the sauce. In 15 minutes, you cook the whole thing fresh. I know your spaghetti twirlers will like this. Remember, now there are 2 Kraft spaghetti dinners. New mild American style and tangy Italian style.
When you ask the neighbors to come and bring the youngsters along, too, here's a meal to please everybody. Cinnamon apple salad served with this very special Yankee ham that we fix with the best-tasting pasteurized processed cheese you can buy. Kraft Deluxe Slices. Whenever you get the slices marked Kraft, you get the kind with extra rich cheese flavor in every single bite. We arrange diagonally cut Kraft slices around a good thick slice of broiled ham and return it to the broiler just long enough to melt the cheese for a very special main dish that'll please kids and grown-ups alike, particularly when you serve it with an apple salad that's practically a dessert. For the filling, we need Miracle Whip salad dressing. Nothing else has Miracle Whip's silky combination of lightness and lively flavor. We're mixing half a cup of Miracle Whip with a third of a cup of chopped pecans, half a cup of chopped celery, a cup of seedless raisins, and 1 of Kraft miniature marshmallows to fill the drained apples, you see. We cooked the apples ahead so they could chill for several hours in the good cinnamon syrup, which we made by boiling a cupful of red cinnamon candies in 2 cups of water. This makes enough for 6 apples, nice tart ones, you know, that we cored and peeled and cut in half before simmering them in the syrup till they were tender. To get this beautifully even color, we kept turning them in the syrup. You better set out a bowl of Miracle Whip, too. You get so much more for so little extra when you use Miracle Whip. It's made with more of the expensive ingredients, good country eggs, and the best vegetable oils. Most folks will want to top off their cinnamon apples with an extra spoonful of their favorite salad dressing. Light, lively Miracle Whip, created for you and your family by Kraft.